Good morning, it's March 19th. This is To My Liberal Friends. In today's world of communications, the venues and manner in which we get our news is rapidly changing. People in both politics and business are realizing this and are adapting to the change. Younger people appear to have abandoned newsprint and prefer to get their news from social media and podcasts. This change is not set well with the traditional media who have enjoyed some form of special status in their own eyes, and they're watching it evaporate. No politician has taken advantage of this change more than Donald Trump. He's an experienced person in front of the camera and has chosen to be available to the media in all forms more than any other president in my lifetime. After 4 years of absolutely limited access to Joe Biden, the press corps is trying to understand how to cope with a president and vice president who are willing and able to stand before them and answer questions, unscripted questions. This method of communication has filtered down throughout the Trump administration. Not only are top officials on TV and social media constantly, they're bypassing all the usual media filters to do it. They do live interviews, podcasts, and social media posts and videos. Every day, many senior officials appear on camera, controlling their message by doing live spots that can't be edited. That final point is important because some of the traditional media have used that ability to edit and filter news to make it conform with the narrative they want to present. Now, this all started right away when new White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt put out new rules for the press briefings. No longer would the traditional legacy media get the first questions, and she even set aside seats in the cramped room for those that were previously excluded. Early in her tenure, she stated, quote, "Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join. Fear not. But we will also be offering the privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share in this awesome responsibility." End quote. Wow, that's a big change. And as you watch the media strategy of the administration unfold, you get the realization that they're going to take advantage of this change in how news is presented and digested. Trump is not afraid to ignore the older news media because they routinely oppose both him and his policies. We've seen him take on directly in press opportunities, going so far as to tell them why their ratings are in the tank. He relishes the opportunity to challenge them on their coverage, and he's confused them because they're not used to this full-on frontal attack on their credibility. Last week, I watched as Vice President Vance was on Capitol Hill to support administration nominee and stopped in the hallway of the Russell Senate Office Building and fielded questions from reporters. He took 8 or 9 questions and elaborated on them. Can you imagine Kamala Harris doing this off the cuff? Trump himself provided the model. As I said, he's constantly making himself available in live interviews and has answered over 1,000 questions in his first month in office, 7 times as many as Joe Biden did in his first month. The Biden availability to press rapidly declined as staff realized his cognitive skills were in decline. Well, yesterday, Trump showed once again that he's willing to answer unscripted questions from reporters, and in that session, one reporter gently hit him in the face with her microphone. Unfazed, Trump looked at her, smiled, and said, quote, "She just made television tonight," end quote. But the legacy media is still upset that they're not calling the shots on who has access to the president. Under Trump and his press secretary, they're allowing more non-traditional journalists to gain access to the president. Karoline Leavitt said they would begin rotating the press pool, including some streaming services. This upset those who have traditionally controlled the access, and they claim that Trump is choosing who can cover him. It sort of rings hollow because they're simply broadening the access and acknowledge that in today's world, people get their news from different sites. And I personally find it refreshing that different people are given this access, and the questions don't always come from the same people, many of whom are hostile to the president and resent not being allowed to show that hostility on a daily basis. Trump is not choosing who covers him. His press team is simply broadening the scope of who can cover him, and that includes which reporters will be in the Oval Office and on Air Force One, and that irritates some of the legacy media as they've long controlled that access, in many cases to the detriment of the public. And finally today, the response by the legacy media is simply parroting the Democratic talking point of democracy being under attack. What they really mean is that we're under attack for being completely biased in our coverage, and we object to that being challenged or changed. We, the legacy media, are the deciders of what is said to the voters, and if you change that, then you're destroying democracy. Well, my response to them is, get over yourselves and start reporting the news and stop trying to skew it to fit your own political bias. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.